Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be working on the properties. There are 5 properties. We have the commutative property, the associative property, the identity property, the inverse property, and finally the distributive property. So let's go ahead and start off with the commutative property. Open up your first flap and you will see the commutative property has a definition of the order in which two numbers are added or multiplied does not change their sum or product. As a reminder, sum is the answer to an addition problem, and product is the answer to a multiplication problem. So, looking at the examples that they have below, it says 7 plus 9 equals 9 plus 7. And then the other example is 4 times 9 equals 9 times 4. Now let's take a look at that property and let's take a look and see, is it true? Example 1, I chose the example 2 plus 3 equals 3 plus 2. Well, 2 plus 3 equals 5, and 3 plus 2 equals 5. Yes, that's true. They're both equal to each other. 2 times 6 equals 12, and 6 times 2 equals 12. Again, that's true. They are equal to each other. Let's take a look at a few examples, because at the top of the paper in 3 asterisks it says does not work with division or subtraction. Let's see why that works, or why that's true. 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Oh, wait a second. Those aren't equivalent. They're not the same. That's why that property doesn't work for subtraction. Let's take a look at the other non-example that I put up here. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 4. Oh, wait a second. 2 divided by 4 is equal to 1/2. Again, 1/2 is not equal to 2. So that's why the division does not work either. Let's take a look now at the associative property. The definition for the associative property says the way in which 3 numbers are grouped when they are added or multiplied does not change their sum or product. Alright, so the example that has been given here is 3 plus 9 plus 4 in parentheses is equal to 3 plus 9 plus 4. And then the other example is 8 times, in parentheses, 5 times 7 is equal to 8 times 5 times 7. Okay, so let's take a look at a few examples of that. I went ahead and wrote down 2 examples for you to write down on your paper. Go ahead and pause if you need to so you can write everything down. Alright, let's get started. So the parentheses tell me that I need to add these 2 first. 5 plus 8 is 13 plus 15 gives me 28. Okay, I guess I needed to give myself a little bit more room there. Let's try the other side. 15 plus 5 is 20 plus 8 gives me 28. 28 equals 28. It worked out. Let's take a look at the multiplication. It tells me to do the parentheses first. 3 times 4 is 12. Times 2 is 24. 2 times 3 is 6. Times 4 is 24. Oh my goodness. Checked out. They both worked. So as long as they're multiplication or addition, this particular property, the associative property, is going to work. However, did you notice up here it said the same thing? Does not work with division or subtraction. I'm going to keep going. Let's move on to the identity property. Let's take a look at its definition. The identity property says the sum of an addend is, and 0 is the addend. What they're saying is the sum of any number and 0 is equal to that number. And finally, the product of a factor and 1 is the factor. So it's saying that when you multiply any number times 1, you're going to get that same number. For example, 13 plus 0 equals 13. Well, that's true. 7 times 1 equals 7. Well, that's true because we know our multiplication facts and our addition facts. Let's take a look at a few more examples just to make sure that we've got it. 3 times 1 is 3. That's true. 800 plus 0 is still 800. That's true. Now, the next part that says up here in asterisk again is does not work with division or subtraction. Okay, so we need to remember that it's not going to work with division or subtraction. For example, 1 divided by 3 is 1/3, not 3. Inverse. Let's take a look at inverse. The definition of inverse is the sum of an addend and its additive inverse is 0. The product of a factor and its multiplicative inverse is 1. When they say multiplicative inverse, basically what they're saying is the reciprocal. And we talked about reciprocal when we were dividing our fractions. So let's take a look at the first one. The sum of the number and its additive inverse is 0. What they're saying about additive inverse is its opposite. So on the number line, if we want the opposite of 6, we would say that that would be -6. So take a look at what we've got here. We've got a +6 and a -6. If we add a +6 and a -6, we're going to end up at 0 on the number line. Okay, then we've got 6 times 1/6 equals 1 whole. Well, the reciprocal of 6 is 1/6. And when you multiply that across, you do get 1 whole. So let's take a look at a few examples of that occurring. So I did 9 times 1/9. Well, first of all, I'm multiplying fractions, so I need to make them all improper. So that becomes 9/1 times 1/9. Multiply across, you get 9/9. And 9/9 equals 1 whole. It does work. Okay, let's take a look at this one. We've got -3 and a +3. If I take a look at a number line and I go -1, -2, -3, that's back 1, 2, 3. And then I add 3. 1, 2, 3. Look at where I end up at. 0. You could also think of it as 2 color counters. If I have 3 negative counters and 3 positive counters, they all 3 create 0 pairs, which makes it 0. Last example, and that is the distributive property. The distributive property says to multiply a sum by a number, multiply each addend by the number outside the parentheses. Wow, that's a lot of words that are kind of unable to work with. But take a look at this particular problem. If I add 7 plus 4, I get 11 times 2, I get 22. Let's take a look at the other side. 2 times 7 is 14 plus 2 times 4 is 8. And 8 plus 14 is 22. So essentially what they're doing here is they're multiplying the 2 by the 7 and the 2 by the 4. So let's take a look at the examples here. I used some variables to help us get through this a little bit. So what they're asking you to do here is multiply the 2 by the x and the 2 by the 3. If I do 2 times x, I'm just going to write 2 times x plus, symbol stays the same, 2 times 3, which is 6. Same thing here. 8 times x, 8x. 8 times 7 is 56. So the distributive property is telling you that you can multiply any addition sentence inside the parentheses by the number outside of the parentheses, and they will be considered equivalent. All right, that's it for the notes for today. Y'all have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow for more work on properties.